All right, breaking news coming out today, September 29th, 2025, as we're hearing the war with Russia and pretty much the world has escalated. We're hearing that a draft has now officially been enacted by Russian President Vladimir Putin, and a lot of people are wondering, is this the route we're going to be going here in the United States? Now, this is happening while we're also hearing that the United States is planning to send over more missiles to Ukraine to defend themselves, and things are escalating with NATO. Let's take a look at the latest headlines so that way you can see it for yourself. Coming out today, September 29th, 2025, Putin signs military draft for 135,000 citizens amid ongoing mobilization plan. Today, 11 hours ago, Putin orders the highest fall conscription target in 9 years. Russia plans to draft 135,000 people during their autumn conscription. And if World War III erupts here in the United States, these are the first U.S. citizens who would get drafted. This has been a question on a lot of people's minds right now as we're hearing World War III global conflict being thrown around everywhere. What would likely happen since the U.S. hasn't had a draft since 1973? What would we have here in the United States? And let me know, do you think that we're going to be going that route here in the U.S.? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. But what we're hearing is tensions are escalating. Take a look. Russia attacks keep pushing the limits of NATO countries. NATO is not ready for a shadow war with Russia's drones. And we've been hearing that they've been catching them off guard. And we've actually heard that NATO is telling the United States, we need you in the middle of this. Now, we've heard the United States say they will defend every inch of NATO territory. However, you've heard Donald Trump drop ultimatums on NATO saying, if we're going to go this route, you got to stop buying oil from Russia. Put you in a very bad spot. So the United States saying they would defend every inch, but there are some requirements. Now, take a look. We're hearing Trump is considering supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles. J.D. Vance has said this coming out 7 hours ago. And also, take a look, top U.S. military brass are going to be holding a secretive meeting. If you didn't hear, this is the first of its kind. An urgent U.S. military meeting is taking place with Hegseth as Trump is ramping up the criticism on Russia. We still do not know the purpose of this meeting. Now, we're going to find out when we do. I'll let you know here on the channel. But if you think it's because we're going to war, drop a war in the comments. If you think we're not going to war and we're going to have peace, put peace. But right now, it looks like as of today, September the 29th, 2025, things are ramping up. And we can see our adversary, Russia, is enacted a military draft in preparation for more war. So it looks like that is the direction we're likely going to be going. So if you put war in the comments, chances are that's the route it looks like we're going to be going. Now, we will see. I will keep you up to date every step of the way so you know exactly what is going on. But let's get you caught up on the latest so that way you can see it for yourself. And I am seeing war pouring into the comments. Now, do me a favor before we dive in. I'm going to cite all the sources. Every article I'm going to be referencing is hyperlinked in the description. I cite the sources. I'm going to put it on the screen, read right from it so you can see the dates, where they're coming from, and know and rest assured that this is the latest information. Now, if you appreciate that, do me a favor, take a quick second, hit that thumbs up like button, and you're going to be able to see the news media outlets from which these are coming. Some people say they don't see them. I'm going to put it on the screen so you can see it for yourself. Sometimes I even come out faster than some of the other news media outlets. You don't see it reported because they're focused on other things, but I'm going to get you the latest as we're hearing that in Russia, this is making news, 135,000 are going to be drafted for the military. Also, to stay up to date, it's totally free if you want to keep up to speed on everything going on. Earlier today, I did an update on Social Security as we're going to be seeing some big changes, global conflict, legislation, all the things happening right now. There was a mass shooting at a church that took place. Trump came out and said, if you're a Christian, be on alert. Things like this, the breaking news, to stay up to date. It's totally free. Hit that subscribe button. I'll let you know everything that's going on, cite the sources, get you caught up on the latest. So again, if you appreciate that, hit the like button, subscribe. Let's go ahead and get you caught up as to what is going on so you can see it for yourself. So take a look at this article coming out today, September the 29th, 2025. Putin signs military draft for 135 citizens amid the ongoing mobilization plan. Now, this article reads that Russian leader Vladimir Putin has signed a decree for the 2025 autumn military draft running from October 1st to December 31st, according to a decree posted on the official Russian government legal portal on September 29th today. The call-up will target 135,000 Russian citizens ages 18 to 30, and if I remember correctly, I believe that's going to be the same age requirement for the United States if a draft was enacted. Vice Admiral Vladimir Simlinsky, deputy head of Russia's main organization and mobilization directorate, said draftees will serve only within Russia and will not participate in Russian invasion of Ukraine. Previously, it was reported that Russia is considering a major overhaul of its conscription system that would allow for continuous draft procedures year-round, as the country grapples with unprecedented military losses in Ukraine, according to the proposed legislative changes introduced by the head of the Russian Parliament Defense Committee. And so there we have it. Just very short article. I thought there was even more to it, but that's it. 1 minute read that they're saying that this is happening right now. You can see. Let's take a look at this one over here. Russia plans to draft 135,000 people during an autumn conscription. And of course, like I said, a lot of people concerned, is this the route that the United States is going to be going? Let me know your thoughts. If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. We're going to be taking a look at an article here in just a second covering exactly that. Now, this article says Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree on September 29th today, launching the country's autumn military draft, which will call up for 135,000 men between the ages of 18 and 30. Russia holds conscription drives twice a year, spring and fall. The autumn's draft will run from October 1st to December 31st. In comparison, last year's fall draft brought 133,000 conscripts. Earlier this year, Russia reportedly recruited 160,000 during the spring draft cycle. Conscripts will serve only within Russian territory and will not be deployed to war in Ukraine, Vladimir Simlinsky, head of the Russian General Staff's Mobilization Department, said on September 22nd. Yet, independent reports suggest that despite official assurance, many conscripts face pressure to sign contracts with Russia's defense military that can lead to deployment in Ukraine. So they're claiming this is just support for the military. You're not going to go to war. It's okay. We just need to make sure that we fill up our military because it's being depleted because of the Ukraine war. They're saying, well, independent reporters are saying Russia's government that is saying this is false, that they are stocking up for war. Now, the announcement comes shortly after Russia's parliament passed a bill in its first reading on September 24th to introduce year-round conscription, replacing the current seasonal system. If adopted, the new law would take effect in early 2026. So just drafting as we go all the time. You might get called for war at any moment. Putin's partial mobilization in 2022, the first since World War II. And we're going to be taking a look at some video footage here. You're going to be hearing them saying what is happening right now. And they're talking about in regards to Russia, the world, the United States involvement. We have not seen anything like this since World War II. It triggered protests across Russia and a mass exodus of more than 261,000 men. 261,000 people have exited out of Russia to try to get out of what is going on right now with the conflict and the war. Now, if there was a draft in the United States, would we see the same thing happen here? Would we see men ages 18 to 30 exit out of the U.S. to avoid the draft? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. What do you think would happen if this was enacted in the United States? Now, although the Kremlin declared mobilization completed, it has never been officially ended by a decree. Since then, Moscow has sought to avoid another large-scale mobilization by ramping up contract recruitment, offering financial incentives to volunteers. So right now, there you have it. We are hearing Russia has enacted that draft. An additional 135 men need to go to war. They're claiming that it is not for Ukraine, not for war, just making sure the military is full. But independent reports coming out from those in Russia saying that is not the case, that they are preparing for war. And right now, we've actually heard from Russia that war is the only path forward. They said there is no chance of peace, and with the way that they said that Trump has done a U-turn on its position with the Russia-Ukraine war, Russia is saying that they are going full speed ahead into more conflict right now. Any potential ceasefire agreement, any deal, any peace it is off the table. And as we've seen, Article 4 has been initiated by Poland and Estonia, which is all NATO nations discussing, do we need to take the next step? Article 5, defend ourselves in war against an opposing threatening power, which is Russia. That is currently where we're at right now. And a lot of people concerned, as you saw, that we're going the direction of World War III. Now, we're going to be talking about a U.S. military draft here in just a second, but let's take a look at some video footage on the latest coming out. This says Trump's envoy reveals the biggest concern amid the Ukraine war, that what if mistakes happen? And in here, you're going to hear them say, this is a global conflict. This is not confined to Russia and Ukraine. This is going to spark a world war if we are not careful. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video footage so you can see it for yourself.
We have great respect for the fight that Ukraine is putting up. It's pretty amazing, actually. And I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger, but Russia spent millions and millions of dollars in bombs, missiles, ammunition, and lives, their lives, and they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop.
Russia overnight launching a massive drone strike on Kyiv. This after Ukrainian President Zelensky announced a $90 billion arms agreement with the U.S. as President Trump appeared to reverse his position on Ukraine's chances of turning the tide in this 3.5-year war. For the latest, let's bring in Special Envoy for Ukraine, General Keith Kellogg. General, thank you for joining us this morning. I want to go first to the president's post on Truth Social. It really stunned the world. He said, with time, patience, the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started, very much an option. Why not? Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that. That last line, maybe go further than that. Are we talking about long-range strikes into Russia soon?
Yeah, first of all, Jackie, thanks for having me, and congratulations on the new program. It's really great. Look, one predicate before we start. You know, this war actually started in 2014 under President Obama when the Russians went into Crimea. And then 2022 when they went in under President Biden. This is not President Trump's war in the sense he has inherited this war, and he's done everything he possibly can do to bring this war to a conclusion, from talking to two major principals to talking to allies, and he's done a wonderful job doing it, but he's really trying really hard. His comments this week that came after UN General Assembly were, and you said kind of changed the landscape. He's always been very, very positive about trying to get to a conclusion. But I think what's happened is the constant information he gets, which is really good, from the intelligence agencies, from Secretary of State, all the way down the line, kind of shows him that Russia is not winning this war. If they were winning this war, they'd be in Kyiv, they'd be in Odessa, they'd be over the Dnieper River. That we added 2 new NATO allies. One of them, Finland had doubled the size of the border the Russians have to protect. We added Sweden, which is a technologically advanced nation, especially when it comes to armament. So this is where I think they have an opportunity to challenge Russia much more aggressively if they pick to do it, and they get the weapon systems to do so. They've never asked for U.S. troops. They don't want U.S. troops on the ground. But what they do want is the armament and the ability and the authority to use it. And if they do that, I think it's going to be pretty well received.
Do they have the authority to use it?
Well, it's mixed. Sometimes they get some of the authority, sometimes they don't, and I think very carefully everybody should follow what the president says. He's the commander-in-chief by the Constitution, and everybody falls in line. When the president says go left, you go left. If he says you go right, you go right. That's the president. The last I checked, none of us got electoral college votes. He did. So when the president says to do something, we just need to do that and complete the action. Look, I think everybody needs to understand the seriousness of this war. This war is the largest war in Europe since the end of World War II. It's between the two geographically largest countries in Europe, with Ukraine and Russia. The casualties are well over 1 million. We're talking hundreds of thousands. They're using the most advanced systems in the world, bombers, missiles, the drone technology. It's really advanced, and sometimes I think we don't realize how serious this is. And my biggest concern is that a mistake can happen, and that causes for a larger escalation, be it the attacks by the drones into Poland or the aircraft that are overflying Estonia, whatever it's going to be. You have to be very, very careful about it. And when I was up at the UN this last week, I talked to the National Security Advisor for the Japanese, Masataka Okano, and he said, hey, by the way, make sure you understand this is internationalized.
Yeah.
And what he meant by that is, he said, in our neck of the woods, The Chinese are being very, very aggressive about it, as are the North Koreans. So this is just not only a European issue. This is a global issue, and I think sometimes we forget that, and we should react accordingly.
I just want to clarify. Are you saying, though, that it is the president's position that Ukraine can conduct long-range strikes into Russia, that has been authorized by the president?
I think reading what he has said and reading what Vice President Vance has said, as well as Secretary Rubio, the answer is yes. Use the ability to hit deep. There are no such things as sanctuaries. That's one of the reasons I believe that this last week, and it has been confirmed, that President Zelensky asked President Trump to get Tomahawk missiles, which give you a depth. They're really good systems. America makes the best systems in the world.
Are we giving him the Tomahawks?
Well, that decision has not been made, but he's asked. I know that President Zelensky did, in fact, ask for them, which was confirmed by a social media post by Vice President Vance. That's going to be up to the president to do it.
Okay. General Keith Kellogg, thank you very much for your time. Always a pleasure.
There you have it, you guys. And yes, right now we're hearing that is under consideration. The United States sending over those missiles, those Tomahawks. Take a look. We're going to get to this here in just a second. Trump considering supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles, J.D. Vance has said, and you can see this coming out 7 hours ago. So, like I said, this video footage, the article's coming out today, September the 29th, 2025. As soon as I find out, I'll let you know here on the channel, but we're hearing that this is what is under consideration. As we're hearing that the war is ramping up, it's increasing. You heard him say that this is a global conflict. This is not isolated. And right now, it doesn't look like it's de-escalating. Russia enacting that military draft, and people are wondering, is that going to happen here in the United States? Well, let's cover that. Let's cover the details about a U.S. military draft. Now, you can see here, this says if World War III erupted, these are the first U.S. citizens who would get drafted. The U.S. hasn't been in a draft since 1973, but the nation's men are required by law to register for selective service in the event of a national emergency. You can see this update coming out September the 10th, 2025. That is because right now, this is on a lot of people's minds with what is going on around the world with global conflict. Now, the article reads that Russian drone attack on Poland, a member of NATO, has escalated tensions in the region. Poland has invoked Article 4, and the world is waiting to hear how Washington, the United States, is going to be reacting to another provocation by Putin. Now, just to clarify, since this article, we've also seen Estonia enact Article 5 as well. So, this conflict with Poland, the ongoing war in Ukraine, and the situation in Israel has geopolitical experts concerned about what could happen next. Between 65 and 69, respectively, of respondents to an Atlantic Council's Scrowcroft Center for Strategy and Security 2025 Global Foresight Survey somewhat or strongly agree that military scenarios with Russia or China could come to pass within the next decade. Let me know. Do you agree or disagree? Do you think that we're going to be entering into a global conflict here very soon? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. They're saying within the next decade, are we going to be in World War III? Yes or no? Let me know your thoughts. Now, all of this is currently taking place, and Trump and his administration have recently decided to change the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Trump recently came out and said, we are on the offense, not the defense. We're going to take control and control the narrative. Take a look. The Department of Defense has been rebranded to the Department of War following Donald Trump's executive order. Now, it says more than 40% of those surveyed expected there to be a global conflict on multiple fronts among the great powers. Of those predicting World War III, nearly 2/3 expect nuclear weapons to be used. 2 out of 3 of them foresee such a conflict playing out in space as well. Let me know. Do you think we're going to be seeing nukes used in World War III? If so, drop nuke in the comments. Now, here you can see a map of Russian strikes on Ukraine last night. Check out the top left corner. Significant incursions into Poland. This is no accident. It is probing attacks on NATO's defenses to assess readiness, deliberately calibrate to be below the threshold to invoke Article 5. So they're saying Russia right now is poking. Take a look at this in one night, poking to see where is the weakness? Where are they not noticing that we are invading their airspace? We've seen this in Poland, Romania, Estonia, Lithuania. We've even seen this for the United States and Alaska, Russia, all over the map, trying to see where they can get away with invading the airspace. Now, if that were to come to pass, the U.S. may need to call on more of its citizens to fight than currently serve in the various branches of the U.S. Armed Forces. The U.S. hasn't had a draft since January of 1973, but the nation's men are required by law to be registered for selective service in the event of a national emergency. Those who the United States would draft first if there were a war. Nearly all male U.S. citizens and male immigrants, regardless of immigration status, are required under federal law to register for selective services within 30 days of turning age 18. Late registrations are allowed until a man reaches his 26th birthday, but failure to do so is considered a felony and can result in penalties. The Selective Service website says that these include a $250,000 fine and or 5 years imprisonment, ineligible for state-based student loans and grants programs in 31 states, ineligible for federal job training under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, formerly the Workforce Investment Act, ineligible for federal and many state local jobs, up to a 5-year delay of U.S. citizenship proceeding for immigrants. Now, in the event of a national emergency, the nation could call upon those registered to fill the ranks of the U.S. Armed Forces through conscription, normally called a draft. In order for that to happen, the first step would be a draft authorization. This would require Congress to amend the Military Selective Service Act to authorize the president to induct personnel into the armed forces. Next, the selective service system would be activated and all service personnel would be ordered to report for duty. Reserve Force officers, along with selected military retirees, begin to open area offices to accept registrant claims. And here you can see the DOW, the Department of War, Rapid Response, news signage at the Department of War. Step 3 would be the lottery, which is a random drawing of birthdays and numbers, establishes the sequence in which individuals receive orders to report for induction. The lottery would be publicly attended, nationally televised, and live streamed. The first to receive induction orders are those whose 20th birthday falls during the year of the lottery. States the sequence of events for the selective service. If additional lotteries were needed, the sequence would begin with those who during that year turn 21 and then go progressively higher in age until 25. So 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. If you are in that age group, they're saying you will be drafted first. Then a lottery for those turning 19 would be conducted, and finally 18 and a half years old. Now, in addition to that, take a look. Poland said earlier Wednesday that multiple Russian drones entered and were shot down over its territory with help from NATO allies, describing the incident as an act of aggression carried out during a wave of Russian strikes on Ukraine. That is what called them to bring about Article 4. Now, those called up would either provide personnel to the newly renamed Department of War, or if authorized by the President or Congress, alternative service for conscientious objectors. After each lottery, induction notices are issued with orders to report to a local military entrance processing station. Once a notice has been received, registrants may now make claims, if desired, for the postponement, the deferment, or the exemption. Now, at the MEPs, inductees will be given a physical, mental, and moral evaluation to determine whether they are fit for military service. Those that are will go into the military service, and those that aren't will be sent home. The first inductees must be delivered to the military within 193 days from the draft authorization due to the national emergency. You can check out the different classifications that would be put into effect if a draft were authorized on the Selective Service website. So that is what you can expect if World War III were to erupt and the United States decided that we needed more U.S. men to serve in the military armed forces. And again, let me know your thoughts. Do you believe that that is the direction that we are going to need to go? Well, right now, we're hearing that that is happening in Russia as we speak. This was announced today, September 29th, 2025. And in addition to that, as we're seeing things escalate with Russia, also they are escalating with the United States. Take a look at this. Trump is considering supplying Ukraine with long-range missiles, Vance said, and we saw Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, let Russia know that U.S. missiles will be hitting them as soon as Ukraine gets them. And we saw Russia respond back and say, don't forget that Russia has missiles, nuclear missiles, that no bomb shelter can protect you from. And they said the American people might want to remember that as well. So let's take a look at this. A lot of threatening words going back and forth. This article says the U.S. is considering a request by Ukraine for long-range Tomahawk missiles, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has said. However, Vance added that President Donald Trump would be making the final determination on the matter. Kiev has long been calling for its Western partners to provide it with weapons that could hit major Russian cities far from the front line, arguing that they would help Ukraine seriously weaken Russia's military industry and bring the war to an end. If the cost of continuing the war for Moscow is too high, it will be forced to start peace talks, Deputy Defense Minister Ivan Havlik told the BBC. Now, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov played down Vance's suggestion, saying there was no panacea that can change the situation on the front for the Kiev regime. Whether it's Tomahawks or other missiles, they won't be able to change the dynamic, he added. Tomahawk missiles have a range of 2,500 kilometers or 1,500 miles, which would put Moscow within reach of Ukraine. And here's a breakdown of a Tomahawk cruise missile, guided missile that can be launched from submarines, ships, or land carrying conventional or nuclear warheads. You can see here a speed of 550 miles per hour with a turbojet engine. And here is a map showing you the distance that it could reach from Kiev. It can go up to 1,550 miles, and you can see that is well within reach of Russia's Moscow. Now, while Vance remained ambivalent about Ukraine's request for Tomahawks in his remarks on Sunday, the U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, seemed to suggest Trump had already authorized strikes deep into Russian territory. Now, asked on Fox News whether Washington had allowed Kiev to carry out long-range strikes within Russia in specific instances, Kellogg said, the answer is yes. Use the ability to hit deep. There are no such things as sanctuaries. Vance and Kellogg's comments match the U.S. administration's recent change of tone in regard to the war. After repeatedly expressing skepticism that Ukraine could continue to hold its own against Russia, last week Trump said Kiev could, quote, win all of Ukraine back in its original form. A shift that reportedly even surprised Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump is known to have been irritated by Russian President Vladimir Putin's surface willingness to discuss ending the war versus the reality of Moscow's persistent bombardment of Ukraine's cities. And we had heard this before, that Donald Trump would say that he had a wonderful meeting with Vladimir Putin and that it looked like peace was right around the corner. And then literally that same day, later that day, he would receive news that Vladimir Putin was attacking Ukraine even more. So Donald Trump becoming very frustrated and running out of patience with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Now, on Sunday, yesterday, a massive 12-hour strike involving hundreds of drones and nearly 50 missiles left 4 people dead in Kiev and at least 70 injured. Ukraine's Havlik told the BBC Russia was only going to further increase the intensity and severity of its aerial attacks. And so, again, we're hearing that the war is escalating. It is not de-escalating. Now, to protect its skies from ballistic missiles, Kiev has asked its Western partners for at least 10 units of Patriot surface-to-air defense systems which can detect and intercept oncoming missiles. Asked whether the Patriot systems Trump promised over the summer were forthcoming, he declined to be drawn into specifics, but said that there was some movement in this direction. The more drones and missiles are fired by Russia, the harder it is for Ukraine to intercept them. Earlier this month, Moscow fired a record number of more than 800 drones and missiles, the highest since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. Now, inevitably, during such large-scale attacks, the interception rate drops. Out of hundreds of drones used in Sunday's attack, 31 managed to hit their targets. According to President Zelensky, the majority were residential buildings and civilian facilities, such as a cardiology center in Kiev, as well as being more frequent and intense Aerial attacks are also becoming more dangerous as Moscow is using new and more advanced drones to break through Ukraine's air defense systems, he said. Now, when Iranian-made Shahed drones were used for the first time in 2023, they were easy to jam using our electronic warfare systems, he explained. Today, they use 16-channel antennas in order to pass through our jamming zones. He also believes that they would be a way for Ukraine to stop Russian drones before they reach EU countries. Now, strengthening our air defense system is an investment into security of the entire Europe, he said, referring to the recent incursions of Russian drones into Polish airspace. He added that it would disrupt Putin's plans to constantly scare Europe. And that is essentially what we're seeing here, all of Europe right now. Not just Poland, but as I mentioned, Estonia, Romania, Lithuania, various nations being hit right now with drones and airspace violations, jets entering into countries' airspace by Russia all over. And even the United States, as we heard, I think it was less than a week ago, a couple of days ago, Russian jet fighters going into international waters, getting very close to Alaska. The United States sending over jets to intervene because they were Russian military bombers that could have been equipped, they said, with nuclear warheads. Now, of course, nothing came of it. They went their way. But still, it does feel like Russia is testing every nation at this time, potentially preparing for all-out war. Now, let's take a look at some more updates, as tomorrow is going to be that secret U.S. meeting. Now, do you think that this is going to be a meeting for war? If you think so, put war in the comments. If you think no, put peace. Let me know your thoughts, but let's cover the details, as we still today do not know the purpose of this meeting. What we do know is we've never seen a meeting like this of its kind. Let's go ahead and take a look at this here. Top U.S. military brass is going to be holding a secretive meeting with Hegseth as Trump ramps up Russia's criticism. The unusual gathering also comes as the Pentagon is crafting a new national defense strategy to prioritize the U.S. homeland. And as I mentioned to you, a lot of concern about U.S. mainland, our homeland, U.S. cities, and preventing potential attack, sleeper cells, an assortment of different things that could take place here in the United States. So we will see. As soon as I get information on that tomorrow, I'll be sure to let you know here on the channel. But let's take a look at what we do know so far. The Pentagon is gathering hundreds of top U.S. military leaders for an unusual meeting, one that comes as President Donald Trump has ramped up his criticism of Russia and as the Pentagon gears up a new national defense strategy prioritizing homeland defense. Now, several War Department officials confirmed to Fox News that the Pentagon requested top military commanders to convene in Virginia for the meeting this week. However, the topic of the discussion remains unclear, so we do not know what this meeting is regarding. The Pentagon confirmed the meeting, but did not offer details. So we do not know if we're going to be entering into World War III. I saw somebody in the comments saying, is this meeting going to be because they're going to enact the military draft? We still do not know. Is this because there potentially could be threats here in the homeland? As soon as we find out what this is about, I'll let you know. Now, the Secretary of War will be addressing his senior military leaders early next week. Chief spokesperson Sean Parnell said in a statement last week, and that is going to be tomorrow. The unusual meeting would involve approximately 800 generals and admirals who are based all throughout the U.S. and stationed in various parts of the world. Those invited to the meeting say they've been told little. Sources told Fox News Digital. Generals on Thursday exchanged messages from across the globe speculating on why the secretary might want to see them face to face. The Washington Post first reported War Secretary Pete Hegseth's plans for the Thursday meeting. Now, the Post also reported on Friday that Hegseth plans to discuss warrior ethos with the officers. Meanwhile, the meeting comes amid several key global and national security developments, including Trump leveling criticism and ear towards Russia amid its ongoing war with Ukraine. Now, it says they're going to be discussing war ethos. What do you think that means? Let me know your thoughts. Reading on, it says, for example, Trump voiced his frustration with Russia Tuesday and accused Moscow of fighting aimlessly and compared Russia to a paper tiger after he met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in New York at the United Nations General Assembly. Additionally, he said that he believes Ukraine, with the backing of the European Union, could secure back all of its territory as the war between Russia and Ukraine persists. I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe and, in particular, NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Trump said in a Tuesday social media post, Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. Now, in recent weeks, Russia has been testing the boundaries of NATO, seemingly daring members of the defensive alliance to respond. Russian drones have been found in Polish and Romanian airspace, and 3 Russian jets carrying missiles flew over Estonia recently. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Mike Waltz promised the U.S. would defend, here it is, quote, every inch of NATO in his UN address, and Trump mused that nations should shoot down Russian aircrafts that traverse into their territory. Behind closed doors, U.S. officials worry the situation may escalate. Now, almost all wars, if you look at them, they don't necessarily start with a big bang. One senior State Department official told Fox News Digital, they start with an escalation, and then somebody feels they need to respond to this, and then you just get into a toxic spiral. The last thing that we want is to have NATO get drawn into a war with Russia. Now, the meeting also comes as administration officials are assembling a new national defense strategy that identifies homeland defense as a top priority. Now, let me know your thoughts. Do you like that? Are you glad to hear that they're making the United States mainland a top priority? If so, drop a 47 in the comments for support for the Trump administration, in alignment with Trump's America First agenda. Previously, the National Defense Strategy has identified countering threats from China as its top focus, as well as we have heard that there have been various attacks on U.S. critical infrastructure systems, cyber attacks, hitting our water, our ports, our transportation, communication, our electrical grids. We're hearing that Chinese hackers have infiltrated our systems, and they have the ability to initiate these. Well, they have not done so yet because they're waiting for a coordinated attack to do it simultaneously to wreak havoc on the U.S. Right now, Donald Trump is saying we need to focus on protecting the homeland. And I see those 47s pouring in. And also, do me a favor. See, we got over 5,000 people on with me live right now. If you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that thumbs up like button. It helps spread this out further across the YouTube platform. Reading on, it says, likewise, the meeting comes as the Pentagon has eyes on slimming down its top officers. Hegseth previously unveiled plans in May to trim down 20% of 4-star generals and admirals, along with an additional 10% reduction in general and flag officers across the military. Wow. So there you have it, you guys. We're hearing that things are escalating. There is a secret meeting tomorrow, and right now Russia is enacting a military draft to recruit more soldiers. They're saying it's just to make sure that their Russian military has enough people on board, but we're also hearing independent reports coming out saying, no, they're pressuring those that are coming in. We need you for war right now. And a lot of people are wondering, is that the direction that the United States is going to be going? Are we going to be going to war? A lot of people are saying it has not been this bad. As you saw in that video footage I just shared with you coming out, it has not been this bad since World War II. And that this Russia-Ukraine issue is now becoming a global conflict. There are repercussions that are going to ripple throughout the globe. This is not an isolated incident. We're going to be seeing where we go from here, but as we're seeing from the articles and the video footage, it does not appear that things are de-escalating. It appears they are escalating. And today we had that announcement from Russian President Vladimir Putin. They're doing a new military draft. So we will see where we go from here. Now, whatever comes out, I'll be sure to share it here on the channel, whether it's war or peace, escalation, de-escalation. I will let you know the breaking news here on the channel. And again, if you appreciate that, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up like button, subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free. And also all the articles and additional resources are going to be linked down in the description below. But that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll keep you up to speed, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.